Okay. Oh. Huh. Over here. Let's go. Okay, not the closet now. Not the closet. Oh, I don't know how to actually see when people come to the live. Let me turn up the volume. Let's put it a bit closer. Okay. Hey, so hope you guys can see that. Well, obviously, if I'm off the screen. We're gonna start probably at 105. I just want to see if anyone else is gonna come in, and then we can get started. But I definitely recommend to get a pencil and a paper, and I definitely recommend to start it like this. So you don't. I mean, you can title it goal breakdown, but this is for the rest of 2024. So I put it into 6 months. So I titled the bubbles month and I did six. So 1 through 6. And I will break down to you guys how to actually do this and how I'm using it. I'm so sorry. It's on my laptop, so like I can't really yeah. I can't really get into it too much, but yeah. So, like I said, we're going to start at like maybe like 104 just to let anybody else that wants to come in and then anybody that has to like get pencil and paper, they have enough time to get that and then just kind of recreate this. Hopefully you guys can see it. I did wipe my screen, so it should be good. And thank you guys so much for coming. I know I said it was possibly going to be on Sunday, but I'm busy tomorrow, so I decided to have it today. Okay. It is so hot in my place. I wish it was like, let me see. Can I sit down with you guys? My hair looks a mess. Oh, okay. This is not. Now I have a deodorant thing. That is not cute at all. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. Slight intermission. Of course. So yeah, I might try to sit down and do it. Not really sure how this is gonna work, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. You guys can see this better. I had a stand, but it's such a long story with that one. So my skin actually looks really good here. Okay. It is 103. So we're about to start in 1 minute. And like I said, I definitely recommend to write this down because it will make a lot more sense. I mean, it'll be easier for you to figure out how to break it down for yourself if you write it down. So I'll kind of just start getting into it. This is basically a 2024 goal breakdown. So we have 6 months left in 2024, and I realized a lot of us have made goals that we weren't able to commit to for a numerous amount of reasons. And so I wanted to create a way to help you guys not only break down your goals, but possibly figure out what your goals are. And I'm also going to break down my goals with you guys so you guys can kind of see the framework for it. And we're kind of about to, it's 104, so we might as well get into it. So, first, you have to figure out actually what is your goal. So, as I mentioned on a previous video, I personally recommend only having 1 to 2 goals. Me personally, for the next 6 months, I have one essential goal that I want to accomplish, which is growing on YouTube. And then I have a second goal, which is like kind of getting into shape and kind of working out. The reason why I say to have only 1 to 2 goals is because we want goals that are like substantial. We don't want just a whole bunch of mini goals. We actually want to accomplish big goals. And we have to realize that not only do they take time, but they have to become figure outable. A lot of times it feels like things are hard to do because we just haven't broken them down to figure them out. And so here I'm going to show you guys essentially how I'm using 6 months not only to break down my goals, but Also, how to break down my goals specifically for me. I did talk about this a little bit on a video, but I'm actually going to do it a little different than how I did it on the video because I realized I actually did my numbers wrong. So to get to my goal six depends on, to get to the 6 month goal at the end of the month depends on what is my initial month goal, and they should be compounded. If I'm gonna show you guys how. So basically, I'm starting in June, right? So my goal is to grow on social media. Last month, I grew to approximately 2,000 followers, right? So this month, my goal is to grow by 4,000 followers. The reason how I came up with the 4,000 is because I essentially just doubled what I did last month. And that's kind of what you should do. But the problem that I notice a lot of people have is that we try to have these big goals, but the issue with them is that they're not specific to us. So our goal is to gain or lose 10 pounds. But it's like if you've only lost 1 pound the previous month, or if you didn't lose any weight the previous month, it's going to be very hard for you. So, why I came up with the specific number of 4,000 is because it's hard enough that I didn't do it last month, but it's also achievable enough that I've done something close to that number, and I can kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to improve on? What do I need to get better to kind of get to this goal? Yes, I will be saving the live. So my goal is to get to 4,000. So the number that I was at, and I specifically took a screenshot of it, so I remembered. Oh my gosh, where is it? Okay, so the number I'm trying to get to, where is it? I'm so sorry, you guys. I had it right here. Okay, so long story short, the number I'm trying to get to is 14,600. That's the number that I have to get to if I get an extra 4,000 followers. So when I first started this month, I had close to 11,000 followers, but not really. I had like more so 10,000. And so if I add 4,000 to that, that gets me to 4,600. Now, how to get to figure out what I want to do a month too? The same framework, 8,000 followers. It'll be the same thing for here. Month 3, I want to get 16,000 followers. And then 32. This is really going to test my math skills. 64. 64, 128. 128. Now, we're going to add this up. So the whole idea with this, to kind of break it down specifically for you, the whole idea with this is that I'm on a double kind of increase base, right? So I'm trying to basically figure out how to do double of what I did the previous month. The reason why this makes sense is because what happens to a lot of people, like I said, their major goal is too big. And so one is not specific to them, but also you don't have a way of trying to figure out like how is this goal actually going to be achievable on a month to month basis. So let's do the math for this. 1,400 plus 8,000 is going to be 22,600 plus 16,000, 38,600 plus 32,000, 7,600 plus 64, 134, and then plus 12800. So by the end of the year, my goal is to get to 262,600 followers. And I basically figured this out by compounding every single month, double, 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 double. Like I said, the reason why this makes sense is if I had the mindset that I wanted to increase by 16,000 followers my first month or my second month, that wouldn't really make sense. And what happens to a lot of individuals is this framework. So you have your challenge, the thing you're trying to do, and then you have your skill, right? So let's say there's 3 levels. What happens to a lot of people is that they have the goal of, okay, I want to get to 38,000 followers, right? In my second month. The issue with that is, and why for most people it wouldn't be achievable, is because their skill level is too low and the challenge is too high. If that makes any sense. The amount of skill that would take me to get to 38,000 followers, I actually haven't gotten it yet. Like, I haven't gotten it well enough when it comes to editing. I haven't gotten it well enough when it comes to marketing and figuring out how to get my channel out there more. So it wouldn't make sense. The idea with this is this: on a monthly basis, I'm increasing my skill a little bit, and then I'm also increasing the challenge a little bit. And they're going at a similar rate. They usually say the challenge could be a little bit higher than the skill. 4% is the rate, but who really knows specifically what 4% is? But it should be at a thing where it's like it's equal, if that makes any sense. A lot of times our goals are not equal. And another way to break this down is, how am I actually going to make sure I get to 14,600 every single month? So I've showed you guys this as well when you do the goal breakdown on a week-to-week basis. So if this is my goal, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 weeks in a month. So the goal is to get 4,000 followers this month. So that means on average, I should be getting 1,000 followers every single week. And so this makes sure that on a consistent basis, you're on track with what you're actually supposed to be doing. Because what happens to a lot of us is that we say, okay, my goal is to get to 4,000 followers. And then by the time you get to week 3 or 4, you're like, oh, wait, I only gained 1,000 followers. You should know by the end of the first week if you're on track for your goal. So this is kind of a breakdown to figure out how to do your goals. And for some of you guys, if you want to comment below a specific goal that anybody has, I can try to break down specific goals for you guys, to figure out if it's how you would essentially achieve that goal in 6 months. But this is kind of the framework for it. First, you figure out the entire month. You list out 6 months with your goal, and then you kind of figure out how much do you want to increase it by. So I did say that I am doubling it, for a variety of reasons. One, for the simple fact that I've been on social media for a certain amount of time, so I kind of do know what I'm doing, but there is a certain level of growth that I am trying to achieve. But for some people, even if it's something like, okay, I want to make more money, if your whole thing is, I want to make $200 extra the first month, the next month I want to make $300 extra, the next month I want to make 4,000. Like, it doesn't have to be such a big jump. Now, it does seem like a big jump from 4,000 the first month to 64,000 the fifth month, but it's because it's kind of supposed to be a compounding thing. Because, like I said, as you increase your skill, you get better at something. So you have to increase the challenge. Because if I was too skilled and I was posting for 4 or 5 months straight, right? My skill was all the way up here, but then my challenge was to only get 8,000 followers right here. I would get bored because it wouldn't be a challenge for me. It wouldn't be something that is like, okay, this is hard for me to do, or this is not hard, but it's something that's challenging me enough that I actually have to sit down and think and work through it. My goal is to obtain my real estate license. Okay, so give me 1 second so I can get the eraser to erase all of my stuff. Okay, so for that one, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know all the things required to get your real estate license, so I'm going to try to break it up as well as I can. Okay, and then I'm going to erase this. Oop. Sorry about the time. Sorry about time it's taking. Okay. So for this one, so with numerical things, it's you start with the top. But with something that is very specific as far as obtaining a real estate license, I actually would start with the bottom because the goal is the real estate license. Sorry, that was like so. I think I probably spelled license wrong. That's actually embarrassing. Yep, I did. I did. Okay. So you're actually going to start from a goal of here. So another thing too, when you are starting from the top, you usually start with here, right? You start with your month to month basis. But when you're starting from the bottom, I actually recommend you have still this, but I recommend you actually starting with this kind of basis, your skill versus your challenge. And here's why. So for you, you already know your challenge, right? Your challenge is, let's just say, the license. That's a challenge. Your skill is down here. You do not know how to obtain that thing. So, on a consistent basis, you should have a monthly goal that you can break down in 6 months as far as what do you want to learn that will be necessary for acquiring your real estate license. Now, like I said, I'm not specifically sure how long something like that takes or what is the process of even getting that, but I would recommend you to figure out in hours how much time do you want to put towards that thing as far as learning it to increase your skill to so I can show you increase your skill. So, like I said, I'm trying to wing it. So for one thing I would say is what are things that increase your skill? So those are the things you need to figure out. So I'm sure you have to do reading. I'm sure you can do things such as listening to I've heard of real estate podcasts, but basically podcasts slash YouTube channels, things that you can do while you're doing something. Reading, obviously, you have to specifically do that. Like you have to be sitting down with a book. But when you're doing, let's say you're driving your car, let's say you're getting ready for work in the morning, right? Podcasts, YouTubing, things you can just listen to, washing dishes. And so I would recommend for you having the amount of hours do you want to dedicate things to increase your skill on a consistent basis. So that for you is going to vary this thing. So how many hours do you want to spend reading on a weekly basis, right? So for you, you also can use this as well. But sorry, I only have 3 colors, so I know it gets a little confusing. Probably should get more. So for you on a consistent basis, let's say you want to devote hypothetically thinking 10 hours. Hmm, let's say 15 hours of work, right? On a monthly basis for your first month. Let's say 15 hours. That is what you want to dedicate. So you are going to break it up into ways to increase your skill because you already know your challenge. Your challenge is already there, which you're trying to obtain. You're trying to increase your skill. So let's say you do 7.5 hours of reading and 7.5 hours of listening to podcasts or things like that. And of course, as the months go on, you will adjust it. But the whole idea is that you should be increasing yourself. And this is also great, especially when you're trying to learn something specifically like obtaining a license or something like that. I think sometimes what messes up people is that you try to start out too hard, like I said before. Like some people, they have this mindset that in the first month, or maybe you can do 10 hours in the first month, depending on what you want to do. But what some people do is they say the first month I want to, read for 30 hours and I want to listen to 30 hours worth of podcasts. And it doesn't fit into their schedule. That's another thing too. You want to break these up in a way where they can fit into your schedule. So the whole goal should kind of be to increase yourself. So the first hour you can devote, hypothetically thinking, 15 hours to increasing your skill, right? We said reading, podcasts. You possibly can do things such as networking. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with the real estate world. But then the next one, you can do, let's say 20 hours. Then the next one, 25, 30, 35. And this is how many hours you are devoting every single month to essentially attaining your license. So if we add all that up, 15 plus 20 plus 25 plus 30 plus 35. So essentially, you would have devoted, and well, you actually can do it plus 40 because you actually would still be doing it the month you get it as well. 40. So essentially, if you did a framework like this, you would have, by the time it's to go to your license, if you can get it in 6 months, you would have devoted approximately 165 hours to obtaining your license. And like I said, you can break that up as far as what does this 165 hours consist of. It does vary based upon, I'm sure you have to read specific literature and things like that. But the whole idea is to try to get a framework of where are you starting out as far as how much time you're putting in, and then also what do you have to do. Is this something where you have to increase your skill because it's very hard, or if it's something that you have to increase the challenge because you feel like you already have the skills necessary to do it, but it's just not challenging enough. What are the total hours? Wait, those are total hours or weekly, monthly? So no, these are monthly. The total hours, like I said, will be equal 165 hours. So the whole idea, like I said, is to increase the amount of, because you don't want to, especially when you're trying to learn something new, like I said, you don't want to be in a mindset where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to, do so many hours of something and consume something so much. Because what a lot of people actually do is they do not the reverse, but kind of the reverse. They do it where they're like, okay, I want to devote 30 hours, and they'll go 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. And they say every single month, I want to do 30 hours. The reason why for a lot of people now, hypothetically thinking, if this is something that you really, really, really want to do, and this is something that you're really devoted to, I'm not saying that it is impossible because, like I said here, by the fourth month, you should be getting to 30. And then by the fifth month, you should be getting above that. What happens is, a lot of times, like I said, referring it back to here, the challenge is way too hard for your skill level. And that's oftentimes when you become frustrated. It's kind of like in the beginning of the year when everybody says they're going to work out and they're going to get their bodies together. But then by the end of the year, nobody actually does it. It's because a lot of people watch these TikTok videos of the girlies who've been working out for 2-3 years, and they've been, consuming a certain amount of protein and, food and calories for the past 2-3 years. And so you, being someone that doesn't work out, tries to do the same exact thing. You try to have the same exact challenge as those people that have a higher skill than you. And it's not saying that it's impossible, but it's probably going to be, after a certain amount of time, you're going to become frustrated and it's going to be a bit much. So does anybody else have anything they would like me to break down? And like I said, it doesn't have to be a specific number. For some people, it can be you know what you want to do, but like I showed you guys in the beginning, I knew what I wanted to do, which was grow on social media, but then I had to compound it to figure out first where I'm at, which makes sense, and then how to, on a consistent basis, figure out a number that's going to increase my challenge, increase my challenge, increase my challenge, and finally get to the last thing. And another thing I want you guys to understand is that you can adjust the numbers. Like if it's something that's not working for you, like even with the numbers I showed you guys, if I get to the third month, I forgot what I was supposed to have by the third month. But if I get to the third month, and let's say I'm supposed to have 50,000 followers or 40, let's say 40,000 followers, right? And I only have 20,000 followers, I'm probably not going to get 20,000 followers extra in that month, right? There probably is something that I need to focus on. So then with that being said, I would have to rearrange my numbers. And so I would have to adjust everything from this point on to here, if that makes any sense. I think that's another thing people have to realize. Like it is okay to adjust. It is honestly sometimes necessary to adjust based upon the goal that you specifically want to achieve. So there was that. Yeah, I hope that made sense for you guys. But this is honestly how I've been trying to break down my goals lately, trying to figure out what is the problem. Do I have too much skill, or do I need to increase the challenge? And then what do I need to do on a monthly basis? So this is the one that you probably will only do once. this is the one you should be doing on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, you should be figuring out what targets do you have to hit to get to your goal, so that it's actually obtainable. It's so funny because I haven't went live in so long, so I kind of forgot how this whole thing goes. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys have anything else you would like me to break down or try to make sense of. Also, if there's anything you guys are struggling with that you feel like, or you struggle with in the past, trying to complete goals or tasks, and you want me to create content about that, you guys can comment that below as well. And I'll try to come up with some content ideas that can help you guys as far as staying consistent. And like I did say before, I do have a group chat that I created, a Discord group chat, basically to help keep individuals accountable and just so you have a group of individuals that are similar to you that are also trying to go towards a goal in the next 6 months. Um, yeah, so there's that. Like I said, that is my goal, is to grow on social media. I do have other goals, but they're more so dependent upon how the social media goals go. And that's another thing I recommend people to do. Have one major goal that you want to accomplish, and I don't recommend until you get to around month 3 of consistently doing it, because that means you've been doing it for a while. Then if you want to implement another goal, we still have 3 months left in the year after that. That's when I would say to implement another goal, because it's kind of like you got the consistency of already going after a goal. You know your routine. You probably already know the things that you need to increase your skill on and improve. For the first 3 months of doing something, in my opinion, you don't really know what skills are necessary. Like, you'll watch a YouTube video, you'll watch a TikTok video, you'll read about it, but everything is different based upon your mindset, like how fast you learn things. Are you more of a visual learner? Are you more of a, you get what I'm saying? Like, understanding yourself is definitely something I recommend. So for the first 3 months, like I said, I think you should only have one goal. And then once you're consistently hitting that goal, I would say that's when you can possibly try to bring into another goal. So you can be working at two at the same time, but honestly, one is enough. Where's the Discord link? So, you know what I could do? Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, so I linked it right there. How do you navigate the unforeseen obstacles that might arise when you're trying to stay on track with your goal? So I can make a video about this, but I also can talk about this a little bit as well. Their whole reason for having this kind of framework is to essentially keep you on track mentally and physically with your goals. So one thing that has helped me with the things that, like you said, the unforeseeable things that eventually will happen and do happen, is by keeping a routine. A routine is very imperative to have, because one thing I realized, especially in the beginning of the year when I was trying to go to the gym and get my body together and stuff like that, if something happened the night before, like let's say for some reason I couldn't go to sleep at a certain time, or for some reason something happened, I often would adjust the next day, if that makes any sense. So, like, if I said I was supposed to go to sleep at 10 o'clock and wake up at 6, I wasn't able to go to sleep at 10 for some reason. I had to go to sleep at 11. I adjusted the following day, right? And that messes you up, because I was supposed to wake up at this time. I was supposed to, work out and eat, and my whole day is kind of offset. So one thing I recommend having is a routine. So at a certain time, like now I kind of have an idea of a certain time. Okay, this is wind down time for me, right? After the clock strikes a certain time, this is when I start going to brush my teeth. This is when I start going to take my shower. Instead of allowing, like, usually I will allow TV to tell me when to go to sleep. Like when I'm watching a movie or a TV show, and I'm like, okay, once this is over, I'll go to sleep. Now I have a more so of a structure, as like at this specific time, I'm going to sleep. At this specific time, I'm going to wake up. And that definitely helped me too, having routines in place. So it's less of me necessarily thinking, I just follow them. But another thing I think you have to have is a certain level of grit, a certain level of understanding that things are bound to happen and you cannot allow outside things to affect your inside life. And it's a lot easier said than done. But on a consistent basis, I try to put myself in the mindset of like, this is inevitable. Like life is not perfect. Like no matter what kind of TV show you watch, no matter what kind of, anything you see in life, no one's life is perfect, no matter how much money they have, no matter what they seem to do. And so I kind of got in the mindset of being like, certain things are going to happen. I am a big advocate of also listening to your body. Like sometimes your body is literally just exhausted. Sometimes your body is literally in overload. So it's imperative to like kind of get a sense of, how does your body feel? And are you genuinely tired, or do you just want to stay in your bed because you're more comfortable type thing? But consistently doing that and consistently, understanding that this is not what I necessarily want to do at this moment, but I often try to think about future me and how is this going to benefit future me? And am I going to regret this? I think about that too. And it's a lot to think about in the exact moment, but I think about that as well. Like when I don't want to wake up in the morning, I kind of, um, I kind of, I don't know, I kind of put myself in a mindset of like, you're going to regret it after. So just do it now. Um, how to stay motivated when you feel like you're putting in effort yet not seeing progress. So, like I said before, that's why I do recommend having, I don't know if you saw, if you were in here for this, but that's why I recommend having frameworks similar to what I had here as far as breaking things down. Because first and foremost, depending on what you're doing, you're not going to see progress in the beginning. Like even, especially, I always talk about the gym because I feel like it's something that's synonymous to a lot of people. But even going to the gym, when I first started my gym journey, it was crazy because I on the scale was one number. Like, so my whole thing was I wanted to gain weight, right? And so I got on the scale and I was hypothetically thinking, I think like 127, let's say, right? I got on the scale, I was 127. I started working out, I started building muscle. I got on the scale again like 3 weeks later and I was like 131. So I gained like 4 pounds, give or take. But then I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I don't see a difference. And it's because muscle is more dense than fat. I say that to say, you are not always going to see change in things, but there's a certain level of changing. Like in my body, I did not see a change. It honestly, my clothes fit the same, everything fit the same. But I knew when I went to the gym, it was easier for me to pick up weights. I knew when I went to the gym, it was less of, okay, what machine am I going to use? And it was more so getting into action and me, knowing what already to do. So I think there's a certain level of, like I mentioned in the video, skill increase that you have to acknowledge. And I think sometimes we always look at it as a visual thing. But if you can pay attention, and like I said, it's another thing about paying attention to your body, right? And your mind. Like if you're doing something that you've once didn't know how to do before, or you once didn't understand how to do before, you're increasing your skill. And yes, you might not see it necessarily, but it's also one of those things that's like a domino effect. It's not like most things in life are not like you're going to wake up and see a change, right? And so I had to realize that about myself. But there also are some individuals that are doing things in the wrong direction and they're literally doing them wrong. They're literally, you're not seeing a change because you're not doing things effectively. And so that's when I would tell you to go back to this kind of framework. Is your skill, too high for your challenge, or is it too low? That's another thing too. Sometimes people don't see change because your challenge is too low. It's something you can do. It's something you possibly already did before and you need a greater challenge. So it will require you to update your skill. But like I said, it all depends on like, what kind of thing you're doing to see if you actually see a change. Um, do you recommend a planner? So I just get a planner from Target every single year. I did try to use digital planners, and I actually thought about creating. So I did create a vid. I do have a digital planner that I created, but it's specifically for content creators. I thought about creating one just for like everyone, but I don't know if like do people really use them? I don't know. But I also, the one I have that I use the most, I'm going to be honest, is the one that I get from Target. So I just get one from Target every year. It's somewhere around here. It's somewhere in this room. But that's the one that I use on a consistent basis. Um, I love a video from you on Friends, making them in your 20s, and after identity shift, thinking about what kind you want to be, what to look out for, etc. Healing from trauma. I definitely can make a video on that. Yeah. Actually, I've been thinking about making a video on that for a while. So I think I definitely will. So that will be, look for that video in the rotation in the next 2 weeks or so. I got a lot going on. So the next 2 weeks or so, I think I would definitely try to include that, because I do understand like being in your 20s and trying to make friends is, especially now. I made a video about it, not to go too much into it, but I think now with this whole idea of everyone being a homebody and everybody wanting to, stay at home and just be with themselves, I feel like it loses a sense of connectivity. It loses a sense of community, um that we once had before, that we no longer have, because everyone's, especially like the whole self-care thing. I'm definitely into self-care, but I think self-care is also caring for others. I think sometimes too we become too invested into growing my life and becoming the best me and becoming this, and it's like it feels so much better when you can help others. But it's not saying everybody has to, start a community center. Everybody has to donate turkeys on Thanksgiving. But it's like when you find things that you're good at and you can help other individuals in that thing, it makes you feel better about it, and it actually makes you better in it. Like it's been scientifically proven that when you teach something, you learn it better. The better you could teach something is usually the better that you know it. I.e., why I like creating self care content. I mean, self growth content, because I'm teaching it to you guys, so I'm getting a better understanding of it. Hey, can you explain the board? I wasn't here in the beginning. Okay, so yeah, I'll roughly explain that. I honestly should have kept up some of it, but I didn't. So basically, um, what I told everyone to do. Why did I not take a picture of my own? I know I didn't. Did I take a picture of it? Yo, why did? Ooh, my phone is acting up. I should have taken a picture of my own thing that I had. I didn't. Okay, so we're just gonna start from the beginning. Essentially. So the way it works is when you are figuring out the goal that you want to have. Another thing too I want to talk about first, sorry. Um when you are figuring out your goal, like I said, you should pick 1 to 2 goals to have for the next 6 months. But I think you should have a hierarchy in the goals. So one goal should be more important than the other, so that you first focus on one goal. Once you stay consistent with that, you focus on another goal. I say that to say, figuring out what your goal is. I think that's what messes up a lot of people too, right? Because a lot of our goals are similar to a lot of people's goals. We want to gain weight, we want to start a business, we want to do this, we want to do that. And I've realized for myself that even when you do obtain some of those goals that are synonymous with a lot of individuals, it's not fulfilling. I actually created a video yesterday talking about how I achieve very great heights at a young age, and I still felt very unfulfilled. And so I say that to say, when figuring out what you want your goal to be, figure out your why. So, for example, me, I want to grow on social media, but there's a plethora of reasons why. One, I want to grow on social media because I feel like my content is useful to helping other individuals. Two, because I honestly feel like through teaching you guys, it's making me a better individual. Because, like I said, the better you can teach something is usually the better that you know something. Another one, it will be great for financial reasons as far as growing on social media. And then finally, because it's what I feel a state of flow in. It's really what I feel passionate about. Like I read books all the time, I listen to podcasts, and I just honestly just share that information with you guys. Like a lot of the stuff I say, it's not like I literally just thought of these things and I'm just this smart person. I've increase my skill, like I said, consistently by reading things and getting into things. And that's not for everyone though. Like that's just genuinely what I like to do. I listen to podcasts and read all the time. And so with that, figuring out your goal, I think you should figure out, why does it matter to you? Like of course a lot of people want to get their body together, but does getting your body together really matter that much to you? Like what is your goal? And of course people want to make more money, but why do you want to make more money, and what do you want to make more money doing? Because another thing too that messes up a lot of people is they make more money and then they just occur more bills. So it's like, do you really make more money? Because now you just got to pay for more stuff. And even if you had that money, what would you even do with it? Like if I was to give you $100,000 right now, would you even know what to do with $100,000? Most people no. So when trying to figure out your goal, I think it's harder than just like, okay, this is my goal. It usually takes time, and usually it's the little things you have to pay attention to about yourself that that you enjoy doing, that you can do, and then figure out, okay, this is a goal for me, right? How can I make this thing more challenging? What is something I want to achieve from this thing? And then what can I get from it as well? So that's basically how I figured out my goal. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of understanding as far as figuring out what you want to do. As I said before, my goal is to, in 6 months, to grow on social media. So, how I got my specific number is based upon the number that I had previously. So, my goal is to double every single month what I was doing the previous month. And the reason why I specifically decided to do double is because I realized it will give me enough time to increase my skill at the same time while also increasing the challenge. As I mentioned before, what happens to a lot of people, the reason why they don't actually go after their goals is because a lot of times for most people, their challenge is too great. They have a challenge that's too hard and their skill level isn't there. So it's like it always feels like I'm trying so hard to go to the gym and I'm trying so hard to build this dream body. And it's like, girl, the girl you watching took 2 years to build that body and you trying to build it in 2 months. Like it's not gonna make sense. You don't have enough skill for that. So anyway, my first goal is to get to 4,000 followers the first month, right? And based upon what I had before, that for me will be 14,600. Then it's going to go to 8,000, 16,000. I'm going to try to do this fast because I know some of y'all probably have already just seen me do this. So 64,000 and then 128,000. So like I said, I got this number based upon where my start point is, and that's where it's very imperative to figure out what is your start point. My start point was 4,000 followers away from 14,600. So I had like 10,600, something like that. um and the reason why I started specifically with 4,000, it wasn't like I just thought of the number. It was because the previous month I grew 2,000. So my whole framework was for it was, okay, every single month you're going to grow by double. So previous month I grew by 4,000. So in June I'm going to start with, I'm at 2,000. So in June I'm going to start 4,000, and then it got me to 262 600. So I'm not gonna do the math for all of this again because I did it before. But basically, if you keep increasing it, keep increasing it, keep increasing it, that's how I ultimately, my goal by the end of the year is to get to 262,600 followers. And so I did that based upon the skill that I already have, but I'm going to increase it slowly by slowly, and then the challenge is going to be increased. And the reason how the challenge is being increased is because the first month my challenge is 4,000, which is going to be, it's something that I said before, it's hard enough that I didn't achieve it before, but it's also doable enough that I feel like if I do the correct things, I will eventually get there. Same thing with here, 32,000 followers, and after my fourth month, that's going to be something that right now that will be too challenging. Like right now I couldn't do that. That will make no sense. But by this month, as I consistently grow, my skill is going to be high enough that that's going to be a challenge for me. Hopefully that is doable. And then here, really quickly, is what you're going to do on a monthly basis. So this you're probably only going to do once. This is your 6-month goal. Here is what you're going to do in a month. So here, let's say my goal is, right, for the month of June, my goal was to grow by 4,000 followers. That means, hypothetically thinking, every single week I should be growing by 1,000. And so it also keeps me accountable, because if I see by this week, by the end of the second week, I should have grown by 2,000. If I've only grown by 500, I need to go back to the drawing board and figure something out. What are some of your book/podcast recommendations? Your content should be helpful. Just practical and broken out in a way that shows how to use. Thank you, Jackie. But what are some of my book/podcast recommendations? So I actually have a podcast. I don't talk about it enough. I definitely don't. But I do have a podcast. Some other podcasts that I listen to, let's get to it, are The Psychology of Your 20s. Now this one is a little bit weird, but if you're into like cognitive science, it's not weird, but it's cognitive science. Huberman Lab. Female Startup Club. I definitely recommend that one if you're trying to get into business. If you're a woman, you want to learn about business and things like that. I like Earn Your Happy with Lori Hardy. Balance Black Girl. And I sometimes listen to a better you. Um, Sometimes it really depends on. I listen to it every so often. So yeah, those are some of the podcasts I listen to. Oh, I like On Purpose by Jay Shetty. I really like his podcast. And then the other ones, I wouldn't necessarily say I listen to them, but they're just like random ones I find in. But one thing I also recommend is once you start figuring out what kind of podcast you listen to, especially if you have Apple Podcasts, it kind of starts curating it for you. And that's how I found other podcasts based upon the ones that I like, because they'll say, okay, people also like who like this podcast, like that podcast, things like that. Book recommendations, I would recommend um, oop, Atomic Habits. I really like that book. I read it this year. If you're into like psychology, but also in kind of a motivating kind of way, I recommend The Outlier by Malcolm Gladwell. And he basically in that book talks about how people who have reached great heights, but like how were specific things made that achievable, such as like Bill Gates, right, who is the CEO of Microsoft, like how he actually was able to get to that role. So I definitely recommend that if you like, but he explains it kind of like in a psychology kind of way, if you like those kind of books. I also like biographies. I love reading about people who've done great things or people who I enjoy watching on TV and stuff like that, because for me, it makes it more practical. I love a good self growth book, but after a certain amount of time, it just becomes blah. Like it just becomes, okay, this case study of people said that, if you do this many times, that's why we do this. And it's like they tell you things to do as far as staying consistent and, things like that. But after a certain amount of time, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it doesn't feel real. It just feels like a whole bunch of case studies that were done and a whole bunch of series of experiments, which are great because they're scientifically proven, but it doesn't feel relatable to you. So I definitely like biographies. Two that I recently read and I like are Kevin Hart's I Can't Make This Up. I think that came out in 2017. And then Leslie Jones, who's also a comedian, came out with a book recently. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah. And those are kind of like self growth books I recommend. If you're into, I'm also into thrillers. So if you're into thrillers, I can't even remember her name. Give me one second. If you're into thrillers, because I am, and I always tell people, right? Another thing, when you are getting into reading, don't feel like you have to read boring books. Like, I think sometimes when people think of reading, they always think of boring, and that's why they don't like to read because they think of self growth books. So they think of a book has to be inspirational. No, I try to read books similar to TV shows and movies I like. So I'm a big thriller girl. I grew up watching Law and Order SVU, Criminal Minds, all those things. So I like those kind of books as well. I think that's actually for some people, which makes reading enjoyable. And reading has a lot of benefits for your memory, your cognitive kind of production, things like that. So I say that to say, if you like it as a movie, if you're like a lover girl, you like the rom coms, get into romantic books. Oh, no, okay. So this is the author. I had to figure out what her name was. Frida McFadden. She comes out with pretty good books. This book, The Locked Door, I actually have like a whole mini library. It's so funny. But The Locked Door, it was pretty good. I also read Never Lie. It was all right. Um, it could be, this book is pretty good. Sometimes the main character is a little annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but then it's like at the end, it's like a what? All of her books end with like an ending that you would never think of. Some of them are like, what? But some of them are like, how did that happen? So if you like thrillers, I definitely recommend Frida. Do you have any how-to videos on starting on social media slash YouTube? No, I don't. And it's so crazy. I think I do want to, eventually I do. Yeah, I probably should create a video on that. It's so funny because I used to be a content strategist. That's actually how I got on social media. I used to help people grow their social media accounts on TikTok, and I did that for 4 years. So yeah, I probably should create a video on that. I haven't created any content on that in so long. Um, Thank you. I didn't know you had a podcast as well. I'll start this weekend. Is it the same name on Apple Podcasts? No, my podcast, I actually will link it below. It's called The Social Diaries. Mhm. And for updates on stuff, like when I come out with podcast episodes, when I come out with YouTube videos, I definitely recommend to sign up for my newsletter, which I mean, I also can link here as well, but I link it in a lot of my recent videos. I recently came out with a newsletter just to keep things more concise. Okay, so I will link my podcast. And any more questions that you guys have, you guys can ask. Reading does improve memory and increase your critical thinking skills. I started reading fantasy books now 2 months. My mind is so much sharper. Yeah, I definitely recommend people to read. I think the issue that people have is that like this idea that reading is boring, but it's like maybe what you're reading is boring and that's why it feels boring. But reading itself is not necessarily boring. It's just people have this mindset like they have to read boring stuff. And I think it kind of goes back to, not to be too scientific or anything, but I think it kind of goes back to our childhood. It's kind of like seen as like punishment. Like for some people, because reading was like a thing of like, oh, once you're done with your schoolwork, you can have fun kind of thing. So we kind of internalize schoolwork and reading and all these things to be bad when they actually have great benefits, especially as an adult. And it makes you honestly more have more substance to yourself because there's so many adults that I meet and it's just like they don't have anything to talk about or they're just boring. So that is the link to my newsletter. And I knew I was going to do this. I knew I was going to do this. Trying to link my podcast. Okay, so that's the link to my newsletter. And that is the link to my podcast. But my podcast is also linked in my newsletter, and also the group chat that I recently created is also linked in my newsletter. That's why I just put everything in there because it's all in one place. So yeah. I kind of think that was it. If you guys don't, guys, my hair looks ridiculous. I need to get it together. If you guys don't have any other questions, I think that was it. Um, oh, another one. Depending on your age range, not sure if y'all watched iCarly. This is a good book as well. It's pretty good. Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Recommend that. So I guess we could go through my little bookshelf and this is the book that I told you guys that it's really good. As far as figuring out habits and how does that work, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I definitely recommend that. And then some of you guys asked about my planner. I have a small planner like this. Um I got it from Target. And yeah, it's pretty small, pretty concise. I haven't wrote in it yet because it doesn't start till July. This is my new one I literally just bought. But this is kind of like how I framework my day. I feel like I don't need that much space. I used to have a bigger one, but it's like I really didn't honestly use it or use all the space. And you can't see it, but it just has on today's schedule. What am I doing? You have your to-do list, you have your top 3 priorities, and then yeah, and I love it because they have like little quotes on here. So I guess this quote doesn't really make sense to me. Love and scandal are the best sweeteners of tea. I guess. I guess. To audiobook is very moving. Jeanette's book. Yeah, it's actually crazy. And that's another reason why I like reading books by like that's why I said reading biographies by celebrities that you actually grew up on or you like or you watch is actually really interesting because you see where they come from their point of view, and then you also see, like I said, what it took to get to where they are, and I think it humanizes them. I feel like now it depends on your age, but me personally, growing up, the closest connection I had to celebrities when I was a teenager was like a preteen when I was young was like the magazines. They used to have like the teen magazines, and I remember I used to want one every time we went to the grocery store, and that was the closest that we had. Like we in my generation of being like a young preteen, people really used to not email. They used to, well, email too, but they used to send fan mail. Like that was actually a thing. I don't really know if it's a thing anymore. Now people could just DM them. But it made them seem more like these stars and these people who just were like untouchable. But I feel like now, that connection is like, I wouldn't say gone, but like now it's like a lot closer. Like you can DM your favorite celebrity, you can see what they like and see what they comment. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see them from a human standpoint and not see them as like a celebrity. It's like, no, this is really a normal person and they actually are going through crazy stuff. Um, yeah, her book was very, very moving. But yeah, also, like I said, I do recommend everyone to have a planner. I personally don't feel like you can achieve anything in life without having a day to day plan. That's just me. Um, I think okay, I'm going to read that book. It's so crazy. I've heard about her just life, Drew Barrymore, in interviews, but I never, I never knew she had a book. But I did hear that she started using drugs at a very young age. I definitely did hear that. I read Korean stuff and Confessions of a Victim years ago because I thought it would be for the last but it was eye opening and a little sad. Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it. And that's another thing that I learned with life. It's and it sounds corny. I know it might sound corny, but one thing I've learned about life is it really is what you make it. And like I don't want to keep reiterating the same thing and saying it again, but I've really been feeling that way and really been noticing that from reading a lot of these celebrities like books and things that they've went through and things that it's like some of these people have went through stuff that I would consider to be worse than me. And it's not saying that they're better than me, I'm better than them. But some of the things that individuals go through is just kind of like, dang, you still made it and you still. And I think sometimes when we think about ourselves in comparison to celebrities, it's like, oh my gosh, but this person can sing, this person can dance, this person is funny. Like, I don't have anything. But then you start really, the more you feel like that is the less you look into yourself and the more you look outside to others, which is so easy to do due to the fact that we have social media. But coming from a standpoint even of creating this content and figuring out how to create a platform, and now I have like 13,000 followers. I started a couple months ago. I'm super excited about that. But for a long time, I didn't feel like I had anything that anybody would find useful. Like, yeah, I listen to podcasts, yeah, I read books, but like, how can I help anybody? How can I, like, how is this beneficial to anybody? And I think when you take a step back from social media, when you take a step back from, you know, comparing yourself to others and trying to fit, how can I fit into the bubble instead of looking at it like that, look at it like, how can I create a bubble? How can I do something and express myself in a certain way that I don't care if it makes money or not. I don't care if it's, you know, considered like it doesn't have to be considered a career, but like if it's considered normal or not, or if it's considered weird or not. This is just genuinely what I love to do, and I'm going to do it regardless. I think those are some of those individuals who really, like, those are the people who can work long hours. Those are the people who can, really devote themselves to things, because it makes us a lot of times feel like, well, this business owner works, crazy hours and I can't do that, and this person does this and I can't do that. And it's like, no, you can't do specifically what they do because you don't have the same drive as they have for why they do it. So I think life, in my opinion, is about, I said in a recent video, but it's not about finding who you are. It's about creating, like, create the kind of person that you want to be, create the kind of passions that you want to have. Like, you don't really find your passion as much. I feel like you really create it. For a long time, I thought it was like you find it, find your passion and find your this. And to a certain extent, a lot of times it is rooted in your experiences, but I think it also is something that you genuinely could create. Because before doing all of this stuff, I didn't even know that this was a thing. I honestly I didn't even listen to YouTube. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I did not watch YouTube growing up. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, since I was young, I knew I wanted to be a YouTuber and I knew I wanted to do these things. But it was like, I knew what I did, well, consistently. And I was like, you know what? I can do something with this. And I did. Your videos have been so useful to me over the past couple of days. I'm so glad I randomly came across while refreshing my YouTube, trying to find these video to watch. Thank you for your video. Thank you. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. And what's so crazy? Someone commented earlier. I'm not sure if she's here right now, Nessa. Not sure if she's here, but she commented how to stay motivated when you feel like you're putting in effort yet not seeing progress. And I wish I would have thought about this when she commented that, but with YouTube, I feel that way. I often feel that way because some videos do good, some videos don't do good, depending on a multitude of things. But you kind of get that was so nasty. I'm so sorry I did that. But you kind of get to a point where it's just like it doesn't feel real. And I think that's why I like doing lives, and that's why I like you guys. I mean, of course, commenting is great to boost to boost the video and things like that. But I think for a lot of times, people don't realize sometimes when people are going after their dreams and they're, getting to certain heights, you sometimes lose a sense of reality. Like, because you're trying to go after something, you're trying to do something, and you don't know if you're necessarily going to achieve it. You don't know how it's going to be. And so sometimes it does feel like nobody cares about my channel. I'm not going to lie to you guys, even though you guys do comment, I do appreciate it. But I think sometimes I don't see the progress in myself. I don't see the progress in my channel. I don't see that even though I did recently hit 13,000 followers, which I'm so appreciative of, sometimes it feels like that's not enough. And not enough in the sense of I don't appreciate it, but not enough in the sense of do people even really care about my content? And it's been something that I've kind of dealt with. But I think one thing that keeps me motivated, like I said before, is genuinely finding what you want to do. I genuinely have gotten to the point where, yes, I want my channel to grow. And like I did a whole breakdown of my goal, but it's something that I like to do and I'm going to continue to do and I'm going to continue to get good at, but it's not something that I always see progress in or always feel progress in. And I think that's when it really comes down to, going after your goals. Like you're not always going to see progress. You're not always even going to feel progress, but at least you're going in a direction. Like with this whole thing, I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I know I'm going in a direction of what I want to do, even though I don't know how everything is going to pan out, which is crazy, but I don't know. It's riveting, if you will. So yeah, my little spiel. Okay, not sure if you guys have any more questions or concerns, or like I said, anything else you guys want me to make content about. I think you're doing what you're doing will grow your channel organically. Yeah, I feel that way too. And honestly, even though I do sometimes feel like, oh, is it enough? Do people like my content? I like that I'm growing slow and I do want it to eventually compound. Like I said with this, eventually I do want it to compound and get bigger. But one thing I've also realized is the beauty in going slow. I think a lot of times people don't want that. They don't want to go slow. They want, especially with social media, right? We have this idea that people just blow up. People just, do things fast. But I've realized like I genuinely want to go slow. Like I genuinely want to go organically, and I genuinely want to build a foundation with the followers that I have and the people that engage with me, contrary to getting 1 million followers tomorrow. Like as much as people say that, I genuinely don't want to have 100,000 followers next week. I don't, because it's like it's gonna be 100,000, random people that I don't know, and I think getting used to seeing you guys comment and getting used to seeing seeing your names, and even to the point where some of you I'm actually starting to remember some of your like little like the avatars, to the point where when some people comment like I already kind of know. And even it's got to the point, I'm not gonna lie, when some people don't comment on a video in like a week, I kind of be like, where you at, like what, are you okay? Kind of thing, because I've built up this community, and I think that's what I really want to do organically, like build up a community and just be more appreciative of it. I think I wouldn't be appreciative of it if next week I got to 1 million followers or next week I got a crazy number. Like slowly growing, but then increasing that slowness, if that makes any sense, is in my opinion, it's more, I don't know the exact word I'm trying to think of, but it just feels better. It feels better, and I know that if something's wrong, I can adjust it. If something's wrong, I can get better at it. And every week, I feel like I'm getting better at my videos. Now, I even have the things I recently put it in with the chapters of my videos now, so you guys can go to specific parts of the video. And I'm growing and I'm learning, but it's like I would hate to have 1 million followers next week, and I don't even have chapters in my video. Like, girl, How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Because you do have a lot of wisdom. Your videos have really motivated me to get things done because it's straightforward, no fluff. Appreciate it. I'm 24 years old. So I actually recently turned 24 last month, May 3rd. I almost forgot when my birthday was. Yeah. Your videos also make me go, damn, she's right. I gotta get off my ass and do work. I know I gotta watch them more. Let's digest, second, third, taking notes has a lot of rewatchability. I do appreciate that, yes, but that's another thing too. Like I say that sometimes my videos, not in a sense to make people feel like, oh, she just wants to get a whole bunch of views. She just wants us to rewatch the video so she can get a whole bunch of views. I say that in a way because I understand watching something one time is not enough. Like a lot of like I've heard so many things one time and it wasn't enough. Even for me to start this channel and to start a lot of the content that I tell you guys about, I've watched 3 to 4 videos on it. Like it's so crazy. Most of my videos are between 15 to 20 minutes long. To make a 15 to 20 minute long video, usually takes about 5 hours worth of content. So it's about 2.5 hours usually worth of reading and about 2.5 hours worth of watching podcasts and YouTube videos, honestly, since I'm a 6. And so I try to condense all of that information into a 20 to 15 to 20 minute video that's digestible and kind of on sense. I'm getting better at that. I'm not going to lie. I kind of have to get better at, getting straight to the point because sometimes I do talk a lot. But I say all that to say, when you digest things multiple times, it makes it easier for you actually to understand it. And then also, sometimes things just aren't digestible in that moment. Like sometimes you're going through something in that moment, and if things aren't, I forgot something someone recently said, but to the effect of if you aren't necessarily going through that situation now, the solution won't fit for you. So if you're not going through money problems right now and someone has a video telling you how to make money and how to do this and how to do that, it's gonna go over your head. But then when you're going through money problems, you're gonna be like, oh wait, no, that video did tell me that. So that's another thing I've realized too. Like sometimes some things just aren't digestible for me because I'm just not the right receiver of them. Wow, you're doing amazing at 24. I try. I definitely try. And that's another thing too I want people to notice. Like even myself, I make a lot of self-growth content and breaking goals down and things of that sort, but like I'm not perfect as well. Like I have mess ups, I have mishaps, like, and also I want people to understand when you're trying to grow your life, that's a piece of your life. Like don't feel like everything has to be about self-growth. Everything you talk about has to be about self-growth. Everything you do has to be about routines and becoming the best you. Like no, you still should have things that you like to talk about, things that you enjoy. Um because then it makes you bland. Like when your whole life is just how can I get better and how can I do this and how can I do that? Those are, in my opinion, those individuals that reach those heights and then they feel very depressed and they feel very down because it's just like, okay, I got here, but what else? You're a tourist too. That's why you don't beat around the bush. I tell people that all the time. And it's so funny. I always tell people I'm a true Taurus. I'm a Taurus, Leo. Yeah, so that's how my signs go. Like the rising, the setting, the moon, all that. Taurus, Leo. And I really feel like that's how we are as Taurus. Um, Sometimes it hits you, the time you hear it. And that's what it is. Sometimes you really have to just like, and that's why I tell people try to fit things into your schedule. So if you're like, okay, I want to listen to, Shamaya's content, you don't have to listen. Of course, I would like you guys to watch my videos as soon as I post them to help the video be pushed out. But if you're like, okay, I'm going to watch this video when I am driving on my way to work. I'm going to watch this video when I'm getting ready in the morning. I'm going to watch, like, you can also have designated times in which you want to do some of these things as well. It doesn't have to be okay, well, this person made a video about making money and I want to make money, so I got to watch it right now. Like, maybe you don't need to watch it right now. Maybe you could just save it for later. Listen, at 24, I was reckless, so that's great to have that much knowledge and actually apply it. Hats off to you for sharing it with us. Thank you. I think it's all about. I think it's all about perspective. Because I never really consider myself to be reckless, but from 20 to 23, I had a time. I was never like a crazy, like doing regular. I was always one of those people that maybe it's also because I am the oldest. So, well, by default, which is a long story. But I feel like older siblings have this kind of this not mature, but like this kind of always having to like you can't be too wild. I feel like younger siblings are wilder. Like they're more so like, okay, well, I have the advantage of doing this, so I can do that. I feel like older siblings are more so like, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't like even when we try to sometimes be wild, I feel like it's hard for us because we just feel like we have to keep everything on lock. And they actually did a study with that with players of the MLB baseball siblings. They found out that when they did the study, they found that the younger siblings were more likely to steal bases than the older siblings. And if you're not familiar with baseball, steal bases is basically like it's risky because if you mess up when you steal the base, you're out. So it's kind of like it's a risk taking kind of thing. Older siblings are often seen as a second parent to their siblings. Yes, we are. Yes, my youngest sister is graduating on Monday. Yep. So I'm driving there, 5 hour drive, driving back to my hometown, and she's graduating on Monday. But I don't feel like this is like, I don't know. Part of me was like, when she turns 18 and she gets older, she's going to stop asking me for money and stop asking me for everything. She just asked me to get her hair done for her birthday. Like, I meant for her graduation. It never, I don't know when it stops. I don't think it does. I don't ever think it does. But there's that. But yeah, I know it's been an hour, so it's been kind of long. But thank you guys so much for coming to my live. Like I said, comment below if you have any videos that anything you're struggling with or anything you guys would like me to elaborate or make videos about. I do want to start consistently going live, but I'll kind of do the same framework I did for this video. So I will post it on like that community page where I post all of my morning where I post all of my morning quotes. If you aren't aware of that, definitely check those out. I post one every single morning. And then I also will definitely send it out in my newsletter. And if you haven't already, definitely sign up for the newsletter so you can get the link for my podcast and you can get the link for my 2024 group chats that I have created on Discord. And I think that's it. I think that's it. But thank you guys so much for watching and have a great one. And if you haven't already and you have some free time, you can go to my page because I definitely posted 3 videos this week, which is what I do every week. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm trying to get a specific time, but I usually post around 2:33. I just have to figure out, when. But every Monday, Wednesday, Friday around 2:30 to 3 o'clock, look for a new video. So thank y'all so much and have a great one.